The stars looked cold and empty in this part of space. Captain Voxstar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Star Whisper, watching the dark void through the main screen. His blue skin showed the tiredness he felt after 3 months of exploring. Dead systems, nothing but rocks and gas clouds. No valuable metals, no energy sources. Just empty space. "Captain," called his science officer, a tall creature with 4 arms and golden eyes. "We're getting close to the next system on our list," Voxstar nodded. The Galactic Coalition had sent them to map this outer region of space. Most of these old systems had been marked as empty or dangerous long ago. But the Coalition needed resources, and even empty systems might have something useful. "What does the database say about this one?" Voxstar asked that his communications officer, Zenth, checked the old records. "It's called Sol. The file is very old." "Captain, it just says, quarantined, unknown threat level, no other information." Voxstar felt a chill run through his body. Quarantine warnings were not given lightly. In his 20 years of space travel, he had only seen 3 quarantined systems. 2 had been full of deadly radiation. The third had creatures that ate metal and nearly destroyed his ship. "How old is this warning?" he asked. "Very old, Captain." "Maybe 50,000 years. The file format is from the early Coalition days." Voxstar thought about this. 50,000 years was a long time. Whatever danger had been there might be gone now. The Coalition needed resources badly. The war with the Void Hunters in the Outer Rim was taking too many ships and materials. "Take us in slowly," he ordered. "Full scans. If we see anything dangerous, we jump out immediately." The Star Whisper moved forward. Its engines hummed quietly as they approached the edge of the Sol system. The first thing they saw was a yellow star, bright and healthy. Then they detected planets. "Captain," his science officer said, excitement in his voice, "this system is not dead. The third planet shows signs of life. Water, oxygen, plant life. It looks perfect for many species." Voxstar felt hope rising in his chest. A living world could be worth more than all the metal they could mine. "Any signs of intelligent life? Cities? Technology? Scanning now?" The science officer worked at his controls. Minutes passed. Then his forearms stopped moving, his golden eyes went wide. "Captain, you need to see this." The main screen changed to show the third planet. It was beautiful, blue and green and white. But around the planet, floating in space, were shapes that made no sense. "What are those?" Voxstar whispered. They looked like ships, but ships unlike anything in the Coalition database. Each one was huge, bigger than the largest Coalition battlecruiser. They were dark gray and covered in what looked like weapon ports. But the strangest thing was how many there were. "I count over 3,000 ships," the science officer said, "all in perfect formation around the planet, and Captain Dot. They're not moving. No energy signatures, no communications. They appear to be completely shut down." Voxstar had never seen anything like it. 3,000 warships, each one massive, just floating in space around a living world. Who had built them? Where was the civilization that created such a fleet? "Are they abandoned?" he asked. "I don't think so, Captain. The hulls are in perfect condition. No damage, no wear. It's like they were just turned off." Hyunwoo Kim, the ship's expert on ancient civilizations, moved closer to look at the screen. Hyunwoo was human, one of the few of his species working with the Coalition. Humans were known for their ability to understand old languages and forgotten technologies. "Captain," Hyunwoo said, his voice quiet with wonder, "I think these ships are in some kind of sleep mode. Look at the energy patterns." He pointed at the readings on his screen. There are very small power signatures coming from each ship. Just enough to keep basic systems running. Like they're waiting for something. "Waiting for what?" Voxstar asked. "I don't know. But someone built the biggest fleet I've ever seen and then put it to sleep around this planet. The question is why?" The bridge was quiet as everyone stared at the impossible sight. 3,000 sleeping warships around a beautiful world. It looked peaceful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain," called Myra, his first officer, She was young but smart, with purple skin and silver hair. I'm detecting something else. There are structures on the planet's surface, big ones. But no cities that I can see. It's like the whole planet is empty. Empty but alive, Haiyan-Wu added. The life signs are strong. Plants, animals, probably a full ecosystem. But no signs of people or buildings or technology. Voxstar felt confused. A perfect world with no civilization, surrounded by a sleeping fleet of warships. Nothing in his experience prepared him for this. Sir, Zenth called from the station. Coalition Command is asking for our status report. Tell them we've found something important. We need more time to investigate. Should we try to contact the ships? Myra asked. Voxstar thought about this. The ships had been here for who knows how long. They might be dead. They might be dangerous. They might be protecting the world below. Run full scans first, he decided. I want to know everything about those ships before we try to wake them up. For the next 6 hours, the Star Whisper studied the sleeping fleet. The ships were clearly built for war. They had massive weapons, thick armor, and designs that spoke of serious military purpose. But they were also beautiful, with smooth lines and careful construction. The technology is advanced, Haiyan-Wu reported. More advanced than anything in our database. These ships could probably fight our entire coalition fleet and win. Then why are they sleeping? Voxstar asked. I think they're waiting for orders, Haiyan-Wu said. All waiting for their enemy to arrive. The thought sent cold fear through Voxstar's body. If someone had built 3,000 advanced warships to fight an enemy, where was that enemy now? Were they still coming? Had they already been defeated? Captain. Myra called suddenly. One of the ships is changing. On the screen, they watched as lights began to appear on one of the dark ships. Slowly, like a giant waking up, the vessel began to show signs of life. Did we do something to wake it up? Voxstar asked. I don't think so. We've been passive scanning only. The ship continued to brighten. More lights appeared along its hull. Then, impossible to believe, it began to move. After who knows how long. Sleeping in space, the massive warship was coming back to life. Captain, Zenth said, his voice tight with worry. We're receiving a transmission. From the ship? Yes, sir. It's in a language I don't recognize. Haiyan-Wu moved quickly to his station. Put it through my translator. The bridge filled with a voice, speaking in clear, simple words. The voice sounded tired, but alert. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jihai Park of the human ship Soul's Vengeance. You have entered protected space. State your purpose and origin. The bridge was silent. Then Voxstar looked at Haiyan-Wu. Did she say human? Haiyan-Wu nodded, his face pale. She did. And Captain, if these are human ships, then everything we thought we knew about this galaxy just changed. Captain Jihai Park opened her eyes in the cold darkness of the hibernation chamber. The air tasted stale and metallic. Her body felt heavy and slow, like she had been sleeping for years. Around her, lights began to flicker on as the ship's systems came back to life. Status report, she said, her voice rough from the long sleep. The ship's artificial intelligence, AGS, responded immediately. Its voice was calm and mechanical. Captain Park, hibernation cycle complete. Current date, Galactic Standard 127,445. You have been in stasis for approximately 500,000 years. I felt the words hit her like a physical blow. 500,000 years. She had expected to sleep for maybe a few decades at most. What had happened to the war? What had happened to humanity? Ice, why was I awakened? Unknown vessels detected in the system. Analysis suggests they are not of any species in our combat database. First contact protocols activated. Jihai forced herself to sit up. Her muscles protested, but her military training took over. First contact meant potential threat. She needed to be ready. Show me the alien ships. A screen appeared in front of her hibernation pod. She saw a small ship, nothing like the massive vessels in humanity's fleet. It looked peaceful, with smooth curves and no obvious weapons. But Jihai had learned long ago that looks could be deceiving. Have they tried to communicate? Negative. They have been conducting passive scans of our fleet for the past 7 hours. Pulled herself out of the hibernation chamber and began putting on her uniform. The fabric felt strange after so long, but it still fit perfectly. Any signs of the enemy? No Void Seeker signatures detected. The galaxy appears to be different, Captain. Different how? Multiple new civilizations detected. They call themselves the Galactic Coalition. Technology level appears to be several thousand years behind our current capabilities. Jai nodded. If 500,000 years had passed, it made sense that new species would have evolved and reached space travel. But where was humanity? Where was Earth? Status of the homeworld? Earth remains under protection protocols. All cities maintain hibernation status. Ecosystem functions are normal, relief flooded through Jihai. Earth was safe. The sleeping cities were still sleeping. But something must have gone wrong with the plan if she was awake now. Why haven't the other ships awakened? Only command vessels respond to first contact protocols. The main fleet will awaken on your orders. Jihai walked to the bridge, her legs getting stronger with each step. The Soul's Vengeance was her home, and it felt good to be back in command. When she reached the captain's chair, she looked out at the stars and saw the alien ship waiting. Open a communication channel, she ordered. Channel open, Captain. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jihai Park of the human ship Soul's Vengeance. You have entered protected space. State your purpose and origin. The response came quickly, translated by AEGIS into her language. Captain Park, this is Captain Voxstar of the coalition vessel Star Whisper. We are explorers mapping this region. We meant no harm. We did not know anyone lived here. Jihai studied the alien captain on her screen. He had blue skin and large eyes that showed confusion and fear. Not the look of an enemy, but she had to be careful. How long have you been in this system, Captain Voxstar? About 8 hours. We detected your fleet around the third planet. We've never seen ships like yours before. Behind Voxstar, Jihai could see other aliens working at their stations. One of them looked familiar, human. She felt her heart skip. A beat. Is that a human on your ship? Yes, Voxstar said, sounding surprised. Hyun-Woo Kim is our expert on ancient civilizations. He's one of the few humans working with the coalition. Few humans? Jihai felt cold fear in her stomach. What happened to humanity? There was silence on the communication channel. Then the human, Hyun-Woo, moved forward where she could see him clearly. Captain Park, he said carefully, humanity disappeared from the galaxy about 500,000 years ago. We thought your species was extinct. The few humans left are scattered. Across coalition space, maybe a few million total. The bridge of the Soul's Vengeance was quiet except for the hum of the ship's systems. Jihai felt the weight of 500,000 years pressing down on her. Her people had built this fleet too. Protect the galaxy. They had put entire worlds to sleep, waiting for an enemy that never came. And while they slept, the galaxy had moved on without them. Captain Park, Voxstar said gently. Perhaps we could meet in person? Your ship could dock with ours. We have many questions, and I think you do too. Gee, I thought about this. These aliens seem peaceful. And she needed to understand what had happened to the galaxy while humanity slept. Agreed. I'll come to your ship with a small team. 2 hours later, Jihai stood in the docking bay of the Star Whisper. The artificial gravity felt different, lighter, than on her ship. The air smelled of strange chemicals and alien life. But it was clean and safe. Captain Voxstar met her personally. He was taller than she expected, and his blue skin had patterns that seemed to shift in the light. His manner was respectful but curious. Welcome aboard, Captain Park. This is a historic moment. More historic than you know, Jihai replied. They walked to a meeting room where the senior officers of the Star Whisper waited. Jihai was most interested in Hyun-Woo Kim. He looked human, but different somehow. His features were sharper, and his eyes held knowledge that seemed older than his years. You said there are only a few million humans left, Jihai said to him. What happened to the rest? Hyun-Woo looked uncomfortable. The records are incomplete. About 500,000 years ago, humanity simply vanished from known space. Colonies were abandoned, ships disappeared. Most species assumed your people had been destroyed by some disaster. Or, said Myra, the purple-skinned first officer, they thought humans had evolved beyond the need for physical form. Jihai almost smiled at that. Not quite, we've been sleeping. Sleeping? Voxstar asked. The entire human species entered hibernation. We were waiting for something. Waiting for what? Jihai looked around the room at these aliens who had become the powers of the galaxy while her people slept. They seemed so young, so innocent. They had no idea what was coming. We were waiting for the Void Seekers. The room became very quiet. Hyun-woo leaned forward. I've heard that name in some very old databases, but most of the information was corrupted or destroyed. They're not a myth, Jihai said. They're coming. Or they were supposed to come. We built our fleet to stop them. All 3,000 ships? Myra asked. 3,000? Jihai looked confused. You only detected 3,000 ships? AEGI spoke through her communicator. Captain, shall I activate the deep fleet scanners? Do it. On the meeting room's main screen, the view of the Sol system changed. What had looked like 3,000 ships suddenly became much more. Hidden in the asteroid belt, concealed behind the gas giants, camouflaged in the comet clouds, more ships appeared. Voxstar's mouth fell open. How many ships do you have? I watched the numbers climb on the display. The Earth Defense Fleet consists of 127,000 vessels of various classes. We also have ground-based installations, orbital weapons platforms, and some special defensive measures. The aliens stared at the screen in shock. Hyun-woo spoke first. You built an army to fight something that never came. Not never, Jihai said quietly. They're just very late. As if responding to her words, alarms began sounding on both ships. AEGIS spoke urgently through Jihai's communicator. Captain, our deep space sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions at the galaxy's edge. The pattern matches theoretical models for Void Seeker approach signatures. Jihai stood up slowly. After 500,000 years of waiting, the enemy was finally coming. She looked at the aliens around her, these peaceful explorers who had no idea what was about to happen to their galaxy. Captain Voxstar, she said formally, I need to contact your coalition leadership immediately. We have a war to prepare for. Dr. Taemin Lee woke up to the sound of alarms. After 500,000 years of sleep, the noise felt like thunder in his ears. His hibernation chamber opened with a soft hiss and cold air rushed across his face. Status report, he called out, his voice weak from the long sleep. Dr. Lee, came the voice of AEGIS through the ship's speakers. You have been awakened under emergency protocols. First contact has been established with unknown alien species. Taemin sat up slowly. As the chief historian of the Exodus fleet, he had been one of the last people to enter hibernation. His job had been to record humanity's final days before the Great Sleep. Now it seemed his job was to help explain humanity's past to a galaxy that had forgotten them. Where am I? You are aboard the research vessel Guangzhou's Memory. Captain Park has requested your immediate presence for historical consultation. Taemin pulled himself out of the chamber and looked around. The ship felt exactly as he had left. It 500,000 years ago? His research materials were still on his desk. His coffee cup was still where he had left it, though the coffee had long since turned to dust. Dottie dressed quickly and made his way to the communication center. On the main screen, he could see Captain Jihai Park talking with several alien beings. One of them looked human, but something was different about him. Dr. Lee, Captain Park said when she saw him, I need you to explain to our new friends what we were running from. Taemin looked at the aliens on the screen. They seemed peaceful, curious, maybe a little scared. They had no idea what was coming. Before I begin, he said, settling into his chair, I need to know what has happened to the galaxy while we slept. The human on the alien ship, who introduced himself as Hyun-woo Kim, spoke first. The galaxy has been mostly peaceful for the past 50,000 years. The coalition includes hundreds of species working together. We explore, we trade, we share knowledge. There have been small wars, but nothing like what your records suggest you were preparing for. That's because the real enemy hasn't arrived yet, Taemin said. Let me tell you about the Void Seekers. He activated his historical files and images appeared on the screen. They showed star charts, ancient ruins, and recordings from humanity's deep space monitoring stations. 500,000 years ago, humanity had spread across thousands of star systems. We had met dozens of alien species. Most were friendly. Some were not. But we learned to deal with normal conflicts through diplomacy or conventional warfare. The images changed to show strange readings from space telescopes and radio dishes. Then, our scientists detected something moving toward the galaxy from dark space, something massive. At first, we thought it might be a natural phenomenon. A black hole, maybe, or a dark matter storm. What was it really? Asked Captain Voxstar, the blue-skinned alien captain. We called them the Void Seekers because everywhere they went, they left nothing behind. Not debris, not radiation, not even empty space, just ... Taemin brought up recordings from the few species that had encountered the Void Seekers and lived to send warning messages. The Cathari Empire had ruled 1,000 worlds for 50,000 years. They had technology we could barely understand. When the Void Seekers reached their space, the entire empire disappeared in 3 days. All we found later was empty space where their star systems used to be. The aliens on the screen looked horrified. Myra, the purple-skinned officer, spoke. Quietly. How is that possible? We never found out. Every species that studied the Void Seekers too closely disappeared. We only knew they were coming because of long-range sensors and scattered refugee reports. Taemin changed the display to show humanity's response plans. Our leaders realized this wasn't a normal enemy. You couldn't negotiate with something that erased entire civilizations. You couldn't fight it with normal weapons if it could make star systems disappear. So what did you do? Haiyan Wu asked. We prepared for total war. Every human colony contributed ships, weapons, and people. We gathered every piece of advanced technology we could find. We studied the few reports from survivors and tried to understand what we were facing. The screen showed massive construction projects around Earth and other human worlds. But the most important thing we did was time the fight perfectly. The Void Seekers moved slowly. They would take decades to cross the galaxy. We couldn't stay ready for that long without exhausting our resources. So you went to sleep, Captain Park said. The entire species. Billions of people in hibernation chambers. On Earth and the colonies. The fleet stayed powered but dormant. Automated systems maintained everything while we waited. Captain Voxstar looked confused, but they never came. They're coming now? Taemin said grimly. Our deep space sensors detected the approach signatures. An hour ago. After 500,000 years, the Void Seekers have finally reached the galaxy. The communication channel was quiet for a long moment. Then So Young Nam, a young engineer on the alien ship, spoke up. If you built all this to fight them, you must have had a plan. What were you going to do? Taemin looked at Captain Park, who nodded. Our strategy was based on everything we learned from the species that fought them before. The Void Seekers weren't just destroying matter. They were unraveling the basic structure of space and time. Normal weapons couldn't touch them. Then how do you fight something like that? You don't fight them directly. You fight the effect they create. We developed weapons that could stabilize space-time, machines that could repair reality itself where they had damaged it. Taemin brought up technical diagrams that made the aliens gasp. Every ship in our fleet carries reality anchor generators. Every weapon fires dimensional stabilization rounds. We built our entire military around the idea of fighting an enemy. That attacks existence itself. Did you test these weapons? Haiyan Wu asked. We couldn't. Testing them would have meant tearing holes in space-time ourselves. But our scientists were confident the theory was sound. Captain Park leaned forward. Dr. Lee, show them the population numbers. Taemin hesitated, then brought up another display. When humanity entered hibernation, our total population was 847 billion people. We had colonies on 12,000 worlds. Our military force included 200 million trained soldiers and 50 million spaceship crew members. The aliens stared at the numbers in shock. 800 billion people? Myra whispered. The coalition includes maybe 500 billion total across all species, Voxstar said. We were the largest civilization in the galaxy, Taemin explained. We had to be. The Void Seekers had destroyed dozens of smaller civilizations. We knew that. Only a massive united effort could stop them. But you said only a few million humans are left now, So Young pointed out. Taemin looked sad. The hibernation was supposed to last maybe 50 years. The systems were designed to wake everyone when the enemy arrived. But something went wrong. Most of the colony world's hibernation systems failed over the centuries. Failed how? Power. Systems broke down. Asteroid impacts, solar flares. Natural disasters. When you're asleep for 500,000 years, a lot can go wrong. Haiyan-Wu leaned back in his chair. So the humans in coalition space are descendants of the few colony worlds where some people woke up early. They tried to rebuild, but without the knowledge of what they were originally preparing for, they became just another species trying to survive. Captain Park stood up. Dr. Lee, bring up the current fleet status. All major Earth-based systems are still operational. We have about 850 billion people still in hibernation on Earth itself. The orbital defense platforms are intact. And we have 127,000 ships ready for immediate deployment. Is that enough? Voxstar asked. Tae-Min looked at the data flowing across his screens. Reports were coming in from long-range sensors scattered throughout the galaxy. The Void Seekers weren't just coming, they were almost here. Our original plan required the cooperation of multiple galactic civilizations. We were supposed to coordinate with dozens of allied species, each contributing their own fleets and technologies. But those species don't exist anymore, So Young said quietly. No, the galaxy today is very different from the one we prepared to defend. Your coalition species are advanced, but your technology developed along different lines. Your ships, your weapons, your tactics, they're not designed for this kind of enemy. The communication channel fell silent again. Everyone was thinking about the same thing. An ancient enemy was coming, and the galaxy's defenders had been asleep for 500,000 years. Finally, Captain Park spoke. Dr. Lee, in your professional opinion, can we adapt our plans to work with current galactic civilization? Taemin looked at all the data, all the reports, all the faces of these aliens who had no idea what was about to happen to their peaceful galaxy. I don't know, he said honestly. But we're about to find out. Captain Sung-Ho Cho felt his ship shake under him as the Soul's vengeance powered up its main systems. He had been asleep for 500,000 years, but his body remembered how to be a soldier. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the smooth efficiency that came from years of training. Captain, his tactical officer called out, we're receiving priority signals from Admiral Yoon's flagship. Put her through. The main screen showed Admiral Da Yun, Supreme Commander of the Exodus Fleet. Even after the long sleep, she looked exactly as Sung-Ho remembered her. Sharp eyes, gray hair pulled back in a military style, and the kind of calm that came from commanding the largest military force in galactic history. All ship commanders, this is Admiral Yoon. Long-range sensors have confirmed what we feared. The Void Seekers have reached the outer edge of the galaxy. First contact occurred 12 hours ago. Sung-Ho felt ice in his veins. After 500,000 years of waiting, the enemy was finally here. What's our status? He asked his officers. All systems green, Captain. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. We're ready for combat. On the screen, Admiral Yoon continued her briefing. The enemy has already engaged coalition forces at the Kepler Station mining facility. Results were ... as expected. She brought up a tactical display that made Sung-Ho's stomach turn. The Kepler Station had been home to 200,000 miners and their families. On the display, there was nothing but empty space. Not destroyed, Admiral Yoon said quietly. Erased. The entire system simply stopped existing. Captain Voxstar's voice came through the communication channel from his ship, the Star Whisper. Admiral, this is Captain Voxstar of the Coalition vessel Star Whisper. Are you saying the Void Seekers made an entire star system disappear? That's exactly what I'm saying, Captain. And they're moving toward the core worlds now. Soho looked at his navigation display. The enemy was following the same path that Coalition trade routes used. They would hit major population centers next. Admiral, he called out, what are our orders? All fleet commanders are to begin immediate deployment. We're going to try to stop them before they reach the inner systems. Ma'am, interrupted Captain Park from her ship, shouldn't we coordinate with Coalition forces first? Admiral Yoon's face showed the kind of expression that came from making impossible decisions. Captain Park, Coalition forces attacked the Void Seekers with their most advanced weapons. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, quantum torpedoes, nothing worked. Their ships were erased along with everything else. On his personal communication channel, Sung-ho received a message from Dr. Taemin Lee, the fleet historian. Captain, I'm sending you updated tactical data. The Void Seekers are moving faster than our original projections. They're not just destroying things anymore. They're learning. Learning what? How to erase things more efficiently? The first attack took 6 hours to completely remove the star system. The second attack took 3 hours. They're getting better at it. Sung-ho felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. An enemy that could learn and adapt was far more dangerous than one that simply destroyed everything in its path. All ships, Admiral Yoon announced, were moving to intercept. The enemy at the Centauri Junction? Coalition forces will support us, but remember, our weapons are the only ones that have a chance of working. The next 6 hours were the longest of Sung-ho's life. His ship, along with 50 other human vessels, traveled toward the enemy at maximum speed. Behind them came the largest Coalition fleet ever assembled, over 800 ships from dozens of different species, but Sung-ho knew the truth that the Coalition forces didn't understand yet. Numbers wouldn't matter in this fight. Conventional weapons were useless. This wasn't going to be a normal space battle. Captain, his science officer reported, we're getting readings from the enemy fleet. On the tactical display, dots appeared. That represented the Void Seeker ships. But something was wrong with the display. The dots kept flickering, appearing, and disappearing as if the sensors couldn't lock onto them properly. What's wrong with our sensors? Sung-ho asked. Nothing, sir. The enemy ships exist in normal space-time only part of the time. They phase in and out of reality. That's how they erase things. Dr. Taemin's voice came through the communication channel. They don't destroy matter. They phase it out of existence, make it stop being real. Captain Voxstar's voice joined the conversation. How do you fight something that can make itself unreal? Very carefully, Admiral Yoon answered. All human ships activate reality anchors. Set dimensional stabilizers to maximum power. Sung-ho felt his ship hum as the reality anchor generators came online. These were humanity's secret weapons, machines that could force space-time to stay stable, prevent reality from being unraveled. Coalition forces, Admiral Yoon continued, stay behind our ships. Your weapons can't hurt the Void Seekers, but you might be able to help rescue survivors. Admiral, Captain Voxstar said, there won't be any survivors if these things erase entire systems. That's what we're here to prevent. The first visual contact with the Void Seekers was something Sung-ho would never forget. They didn't look like ships in any normal sense. They were dark shapes that seemed to bend light around them. When he looked directly at them, his eyes couldn't quite focus. It was like trying to look at something that was only half there. All ships, Admiral Yoon commanded, weapons free, fire at will. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had been designed specifically for this enemy. Instead of normal energy beams or missiles, they fired pulses of stabilized space-time. Bursts of concentrated reality that forced the Void Seekers to exist in normal space. For a moment, it looked like the plan was working. Several Void Seeker ships flickered and became solid. trapped in normal reality by the human weapons. Then the enemy fired back. Sung-ho watched in horror as a coalition ship simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not blown apart, it just wasn't there anymore. 1 second, it was firing its weapons at the enemy. The next second, there was empty space where it had been. Reality anchor effectiveness dropping, his science officer reported. The enemy is adapting to our stabilization fields. How fast? Each shot they fire is more effective than the last. They're learning how to counter our weapons in real time. Admiral Yoon's voice came through the fleet channel, calm despite the disaster unfolding around them. All ships fall back to secondary positions. We need to try a different approach. But as the human fleet retreated, Sung-ho realized something terrible. The Void Seekers weren't just learning how to counter human weapons. They were learning how to use reality-erasing technology more effectively. The spaces where coalition ships had been erased were growing, spreading like infection through normal space. "Admiral," he called out, "the erasure zones are expanding." "I see it, Captain." "Dr. Lee, what's your assessment?" Dr. Taemin's voice was grim. "The Void Seekers aren't just erasing individual targets anymore. They're creating cascade failures in space-time itself. If this continues, they won't need to attack every system individually. They can make entire regions of the galaxy stop existing." Captain Voxstar's ship had survived the first attack, but barely. His voice was shaking when he spoke. "Admiral Yoon, how do we fight something like this?" "We adapt faster than they do," Admiral Yoon replied. "Captain Cho, take your ship back. To Earth, we need to wake up the main fleet." "Ma'am?" "All of it, Captain. Every ship, every weapon platform, every defensive system. We're going to need everything humanity built if we want to save this galaxy." As his ship turned toward home, Sung-ho looked back at the battle zone. The human fleet was still fighting, still trying to contain the spreading erasure zones. But he could see they were losing ground. Behind him, more coalition ships winked out of existence. Entire crews, entire civilizations worth of knowledge and culture, simply ceasing to be. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from Earth. Put it through." The voice that came through was AEGIS, the artificial intelligence that managed Earth's defenses. "Captain Cho, hibernation revival systems are activating planet-wide. Estimated time to full population awakening, 72 hours. What about the orbital platforms? Already coming online. But Captain, there's something else. Our deep space monitors have detected additional Void Seeker fleets approaching from multiple directions." Sung-ho felt his blood turn cold. "How many?" "At least 12 separate fleets, each larger than the one currently engaged." "They're not just invading the galaxy, Captain. They're surrounding it?" As Earth grew larger on his main screen, Sung-ho realized the horrible truth. Humanity had built the greatest military force in galactic history to fight this enemy. But the enemy was bigger than anyone had imagined. The real war was just beginning. Captain Dong-Hyeon Park stood on the bridge of his ship, the Besant's hammer, watching the most impossible battle in galactic history unfold around him. 3 weeks had passed since the Void Seekers began their assault on the galaxy, and everything had changed. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with deadly efficiency. Half of them were human, awakened from the long sleep to fight this ancient enemy. The other half were coalition species who had volunteered to serve on human ships after their own fleets proved useless against the Void Seekers. Status report. Dong-Hyeon called out. "Enemy fleet approaching Proxima Sector," his tactical officer replied. 12 Void Seeker vessels moving at standard erasure speed. Dong-Hyeon nodded. Standard erasure speed meant they were taking their time, methodically, removing everything in their path from existence. In the past 3 weeks, 17 star systems had simply stopped being real. Coalition evacuation ships? Still loading refugees from the outer planets. They need another 6 hours. "They have 2 hours, Dong-Hyeon said grimly. "After that, we engage the enemy whether the evacuation is complete or not." His communications officer, a blue-skinned Avalian named Crix, looked up from his station. Captain, that's 200 million people still on those worlds. And if we let the Void Seekers reach the core systems, it'll be 200 billion people. Dong Haiyan hated making these decisions, but someone had to. Signal the evacuation fleet. They have 2 hours. This was the reality of fighting the Void Seekers. Every decision meant choosing who lived and who died. Every tactical choice sacrificed some people to save others. It was a kind of warfare that the peaceful coalition species had never experienced. Captain, called out Sujin, his human science. Officer, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Yoon's flagship. Put her through. Admiral Da Yun appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Dong Haiyan could see the controlled chaos of the fleet's command center. Officers from dozens of species worked side by side, trying to coordinate a defense against an enemy that broke all the rules of normal warfare. Captain Park, what's your assessment of the new joint tactics? Dong Haiyan looked at his tactical display. Human ships worked in small groups with coalition vessels, using their reality anchors to protect the alien ships while the coalition forces provided support and rescued survivors. It's working better than pure human operations, he replied. The coalition ships can get into areas where our reality anchors are less effective. They're faster and better at evacuation operations. And the cost? Dong Haiyan's expression darkened. We're losing about 30 coalition ships per engagement. They can't survive direct hits from Void Seeker weapons, even with our protection. On the screen, Admiral Yoon looked tired. She had been commanding this impossible war for 3 weeks without rest. I know it's hard, Captain, but those coalition crews volunteered for this. That doesn't make it easier to watch them die. No, the Admiral agreed. It doesn't. The communication channel switched to include other ship commanders across the battle zone. Captain Sun Ho Cho's face appeared in a corner of the screen. Admiral, we've successfully defended the Vega system, but barely. The Void Seekers are learning to counter our reality anchors faster each time. How much faster? Admiral Yoon asked. Dr. Minjin Kim, humanities chief scientist, joined the channel from his research ship. Each engagement, they adapt approximately 15% faster than the previous one. At this rate, our current weapons will be completely ineffective within 2 weeks. The silence on the communication channel was heavy. Everyone understood what that meant. If human weapons stopped working, nothing could stop the Void Seekers. Dr. Kim, Admiral Yoon said, what about the research project with coalition scientists? We're making progress combining human dimensional technology with coalition energy systems. The theory is sound, but we need more time for testing. Time. We don't have, Dong Haiyan pointed out. Through his ship's viewports, he could see the approaching Void Seeker fleet. They moved like dark shadows against the stars, bending light around them in ways that hurt to look at. Captain Park, Admiral Yoon said, you're authorized to test the new hybrid weapons in live combat. Ma'am, the weapons haven't been fully tested. We don't know if they'll work or if they might make things worse. Captain, 17 star systems are gone. At the current rate of loss, the entire galaxy will be erased within 6 months. We're past the point of safe testing. Dong Haiyan looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Humans and aliens working together, all knowing they might die in the next few hours. All willing to take that risk to save their galaxy. Understood, Admiral. Beginning attack run now. The Bizen's hammer moved toward the enemy fleet, followed by 6 other human ships and 12 coalition vessels. Behind them, the massive evacuation fleet continued loading refugees from the doomed worlds below. New weapons charging, Sujin reported. Reality anchors at maximum power. Coalition energy boosters online. The hybrid weapons were Dr. Kim's attempt to combine human reality stabilization technology with coalition energy amplification systems. In theory, they would create reality anchor fields that were both stronger and more flexible than anything humanity had built before. Enemy vessels in range, the tactical officer announced. All ships, fire at will. The combined fleet opened. Fire with the new weapons. Instead of the usual blue pulses of stabilized spacetime, The hybrid weapons fired streams of golden energy that seemed to repair reality itself wherever they touched. For a moment, it looked like they had found the answer. Several Void Seeker ships flickered and became solid, trapped in the strengthened reality fields created by the new weapons. Then the coalition ships began exploding. "What's happening?" Dong Haiyan shouted. "The energy feedback from the hybrid weapons is overloading coalition power systems," Sujin reported. "Their ships can't handle the dimensional stress." On the tactical display, Dong Haiyan watched 3 coalition vessels tear themselves apart from the inside as their power cores overloaded. Dozens of alien crew members died in seconds. "All coalition ships, cease fire and retreat to safe distance," he ordered, but the damage was done. The Void Seekers had learned something new from watching the hybrid weapons work. When they fired back, their erasure beams were different. Stronger, more focused. The human ship, Inchin's Pride, simply vanished, along with its entire crew of 800 people. "Reality anchor effectiveness down to 60%, his science officer reported. "The enemy has adapted to our new weapons." "How is that possible?" "We just invented them. They don't need to understand our technology," Dr. Kim's voice came through the communication channel. "They're learning to attack the fundamental principles our weapons are based on." The battle continued for 6 more hours. The human coalition fleet managed to destroy 3 Void Seeker ships and damage several others, but the cost was enormous. 40 coalition vessels were lost, along with 8 human ships. When the surviving Void Seekers finally retreated, they left behind something worse than destruction. The space where the battle had taken place was ... wrong. Stars flickered in and out of existence. The normal laws of physics seemed to work only part of the time. "Captain," Crix called out from his communication station, "the evacuation fleet reports successful rescue of 180 million refugees." "And the other 20 million? Still on the surface when the reality distortions reached the planet. The world's ... They're not completely erased, but they're not completely real either." Dong Haiyan looked at the tactical display showing the damage to normal space-time. The Void Seekers weren't just destroying things anymore. They were creating zones where existence itself became uncertain. "Admiral Yoon," he called through the fleet channel, "we need a new strategy. The current approach isn't sustainable." "I know, Captain. Dr. Kim, how long until you can develop weapons that work?" "Admiral, I don't think better weapons are the answer. Every time we create something new, they adapt faster. We need to change our entire approach to this war." "What do you suggest?" Dr. Kim's voice was grim. "We need to wake up more of Earth's sleeping population. Not just the military personnel, everyone. We're going to need every human brain working on this problem." Admiral Yoon was quiet for a long moment. "Dr. Kim, that would mean ending the hibernation protocols permanently. If we wake everyone up and still lose this war, humanity dies completely." "Admiral, if we don't wake everyone up, we're going to lose anyway. The Void Seekers are adapting faster than we can develop new weapons. Our only advantage is that humans think about warfare differently than other species." "Different how?" "We're willing to make the hard choices. We're willing to sacrifice anything to win. The coalition species fight to minimize losses. We fight to win, no matter what it costs." On his bridge, Dong Haiyan listened to this conversation and realized that Dr. Kim was right. The coalition species were fighting to save as many people as possible. Humanity was fighting to save the concept of existence itself. "Admiral," he said quietly, "give the wake-up order. All of Earth, it's time to show this galaxy what humans are really capable of." Fleet Admiral Sujin Lee stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, watching the greatest awakening in human history. Above her, 850 billion people were emerging from hibernation chambers that had kept them sleeping for 500,000 years. The planet that had been silent for so long was coming back to life. "Status report," she called out to her staff. "Population revival at 90% completion," reported her aide, Captain Young Soo-oh. "All major cities are operational. Industrial complexes are coming online ahead of schedule. And the fleet? All 127,000 ships are ready for combat operations. The orbital defense platforms are fully charged. Ground-based weapon systems are operational. Sujin nodded, but her mind was on larger problems. Through the tactical displays around her, she could see the true scope of the Void Seeker invasion. They weren't just attacking random systems anymore. They were moving in a coordinated pattern, surrounding the galaxy's core worlds. "Admiral," called Dr. Haijin Kang from her science station, "I've finished analyzing the Void Seeker remains from our recent battles." "What did you find?" "Something that changes everything we thought we knew about this enemy." Dr. Kang brought up a holographic display showing the molecular structure of Void Seeker technology, but the readings made no sense. The technology seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "Admiral, the Void Seekers aren't invaders." "What do you mean?" "They're refugees. Their technology, their behavior patterns, even the way they erase things from reality, it's all defensive. They're running from something." Sujin felt cold understanding wash over her. Running from what? "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's worse than anything we've seen. The Void Seekers are trying to escape by removing themselves and everything around them from normal reality." "They're trying to hide," Captain O said quietly. "Exactly. And when we force them back into normal space with our reality anchors, we're preventing them from escaping whatever they're afraid of." Sujin looked at the tactical displays showing the battle zones across the galaxy. Suddenly, the Void Seekers' behavior made terrible sense. They weren't trying to conquer anything. They were trying to disappear completely. "Dr. Kang, if they're refugees, what are they running from?" "I don't know, Admiral. But our deep space sensors are starting to pick up something at the very edge of detectable space. Something that's making the Void Seekers look small." Before Sujin could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Captain O rushed to his station. "Admiral, massive Void Seeker fleet approaching Earth, all ships, all directions. This looks like their final assault. How many ships?" "Over 50,000 vessels. They're surrounding the entire solar system." Sujin felt a moment of doubt. Even with humanity's full fleet, those were terrible odds. Then she remembered why Earth had been chosen as humanity's final stronghold. "Captain O, activate Protocol 7. Ma'am?" "Protocol 7. The planet itself becomes a weapon." Around the command center, her staff moved to stations they had drilled on for years but never thought they would actually use. Above them, the surface of Earth began to change. The continents split open along carefully designed fault lines. Massive weapon emplacements rose from underground chambers. The planet's crust, which had been reinforced and rebuilt over thousands of years, became one enormous gun battery. "Admiral," reported the weapons control officer, "all planetary defense systems are online, fusion cores at maximum power. Reality stabilization fields extending to lunar orbit." "What about the population?" "All civilians are in deep shelters. Military personnel are at battle stations." Through the communication system, Sujin could hear the voices of ship commanders across the solar system. Human captains who had been preparing for this moment for 500,000 years. "All fleet elements, this is Admiral Lee. Today we find out if humanity's preparations were enough." Captain Donghyun Park's voice came through from the Bizen's hammer. "Admiral, coalition forces are requesting permission to assist." "Negative, Captain. Get all coalition ships to minimum safe distance. What we're about to do could be dangerous for anyone not protected by human reality anchors." She paused, then added, "This is humanity's fight. We dragged the galaxy into this war. It's our responsibility to end it." The Void Seeker fleet arrived like a wave of darkness washing over the solar system. Their ships didn't move like normal vessels. They flickered in and out of reality, appearing and disappearing as they tried to phase Earth out of existence. "All weapons, fire at will." The response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Earth itself became a gun platform. Weapons that had been charging for 500,000 years fired beams of concentrated reality at the enemy fleet. The space around Earth lit up like a star as dimensional stabilizers fought against reality erasure technology. But Sujin had saved the most important revelation for last. Dr. Kong, activate the quantum resonance scanners. Admiral, are you sure? We've never tested them at full power. Do it. The scanners reached out beyond the galaxy, beyond normal space, searching for whatever the Void Seekers were running from. What they found made everyone in the command center go silent. Admiral, Dr. Kong said, her voice barely a whisper, there's something out there. Something that makes the Void Seekers look like insects. On the main display, the quantum scanners showed movement in the darkness between galaxies. Shapes that were too large to comprehend, moving toward their galaxy at impossible speeds. How long until they arrive? Sujin asked. Based on current speed, maybe 1,000 years. And the Void Seekers? They've been running from these things for millions of years, trying to find somewhere to hide. Sujin understood now. The Void Seekers weren't the real enemy. They were just the first wave of refugees from something much worse. And humanity had spent 500,000 years preparing to fight the wrong war. All ships, cease fire, she ordered. Admiral? Captain O looked confused. Open a communication channel to the Void Seeker fleet. Ma'am, they've never responded to communications before, they will now. The communication system reached out to the enemy fleet with a simple message. We know what you're running from. We want to help. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the Void Seeker attack stopped. Their ships flickered back into normal reality and held position around Earth. A voice came through the communication system, speaking in harmonics that hurt to hear. You? No? We know you're refugees. We know something worse is coming. And, we know that hiding by erasing reality won't work forever. The Void Seeker voice was silent for a long time. Then, the Devourers come. They consume all. We tried to flee by becoming nothing. It was not enough. Then we fight them together, Sujin said. Humanity spent 500,000 years preparing for war. Maybe we were preparing for the right war, just not the right enemy. Dr. Kong looked up from her scanners. Admiral, the Void Seekers have technology that could help us. If we can combine their reality phase abilities with our stabilization fields, we could build defenses that exist outside normal space-time, Sujin finished. Hidden from the Devourers but still able to fight them. Captain O was studying the tactical displays. Admiral, this changes everything. If we're going to fight something that big, we'll need more than just humanity and the Void Seekers. You're right. Signal all coalition forces. Tell them the real war is about to begin. As the communication went out across the galaxy, Sujin realized the truth about humanity's nature. They weren't conquerors or explorers or even defenders. They were the species that woke up when others went to sleep. They were the ones who prepared for wars that might never come. They were the galaxy's insurance policy against threats too terrible to imagine. Admiral, Dr. Kong called out, I'm getting readings from the other side of the galaxy. More refugee fleets are arriving. Not just Void Seekers. Dozens of different species, all running from the same thing. Signal them all. Tell them Earth is open to refugees. Tell them we're going to make a stand here. Captain O looked worried. Admiral, if we gather all the refugee fleets here, won't that just make Earth a bigger target? Sujin smiled grimly. Captain, Earth was always going to be the target. That was the plan from the beginning. We didn't spend 500,000 years turning this planet into a fortress to hide. We did it to make the enemy come to us. You mean... I mean the Void Seekers weren't late, Captain. They were right on time. We've been waiting for them to lead us to the real enemy. As refugee fleets from across the galaxy began arriving at Earth, as ancient enemies became allies, as the greatest military force in galactic history prepared for its true purpose. Sujin looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had slept for 500,000 years, but they had been dreaming of this moment. The moment when they would stand between the galaxy and the darkness beyond it, ready to fight a war that others couldn't even imagine. The real war was about to begin. and humanity was exactly where they belonged, at the front lines, protecting a galaxy that had never known it needed protection. In the distance, the Devourers continued their approach, unaware that their victims had finally stopped running and started preparing to fight back.